Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn. In about 25 minutes or so, we'll be joined by Linda Lozzi. She is the author of The Great God Hunt, A Guide to Living in the Here and After. She lost not one but two of her children through catastrophes. One was an accident, the other was suicide. She's overcome them, and we'll talk to her about starting life every year again as we enter the new year, 2016. I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, of course, and movies, horror movies, apparently are actually good for you. And we're going to find out now from Marlon-Schulman, the founder and CEO of the Horror Equity Fund, and ben-herskowitz, who's a veteran Hollywood producer, writer, and director. He's the author of the best-selling Process to Product, A Practical Guide to Screenwriting. He's a faculty member of the Boston University of Los Angeles' graduate degree program, and of course he's a writer in Hollywood. Now, before we start, gentlemen, I'm making you two an offer.
All right.
Okay? Here's the offer. It's very simple. If you need a dead body, you knew I was going to say that.
Mark can play the headless guy.
I could be the headless guy. You've seen my picture. Right. You understand, right? So if you need a dead guy,
how to cut 20 years off your life? Remove your head.
Remove your head. There's the name of a new film. All right.
Yeah, I don't know if we need a dead guy. We may need somebody to play a dead guy. That's a whole different thing.
Oh, that's true.
It's slightly different.
That is, absolutely it is. Gentlemen, welcome to Late Night Health. That was my partner, the insane Daryl Wayne. And we're going to talk now about how horror movies, first of all, can affect health. You guys have a horror equity fund. You raise money and then find projects to invest in. Is that correct?
Well, this is Marlon, and first of all, thank you for having us on the show. It's a real pleasure. It's sort of, I don't know if we find the money first or find the project. The projects seem to find us, and we solicit them. Horror Equity Fund is a company that discovers, develops, accelerates the market, and assists in the funding of horror-centric projects, mainly films. And
we have, excuse me, it just occurred to me,
sure.
And I'm sorry, we have a horror radio show called Late Night Health, right? It's just something to throw out. I'm sorry, I did not mean to.
Well, no, excellent. The range of subjects is limited, as far as we're concerned, is limited only by one's imagination. And as long as they're horror-centric or thriller or psychological thriller, we can bring them in and we can sort of help to executive produce the project, whether it be a haunted hayride or a motion picture, by giving access to the project creators resources that otherwise they couldn't reach, including money and helping them to raise money for their project. But there are definitely health benefits to horror movies.
All right. The other night, my wife and I were watching some black and white thing from the 50s. I don't remember what it was. It was scary. We cuddled a little bit, not for her, but for me, because I'm the wuss of the two. But then the horror pictures today, when you see the entrails of somebody actually being eviscerated from the body, you see the heart still pumping, blood gushing. How does that help me, health-wise, by watching that?
Can I weigh in on this? This is Brian.
Absolutely, sure. Brian.
Yeah. One of the things that studies have shown is a thing called the horror paradox, and that's where why are we as a society so attracted to such visual horrific events that you see in films, or watching people going through things that we could only imagine in our horrible, most worst nightmare. And that's the horror paradox. This idea that there's something about characters that face adversity and sort of the there but for the grace of God go I theory, that
right.
We viscerally, symbolically live through them, and when we survive that event, or come out of it through the other end. We've experienced the same kind of fear that we would fear on the street, that fight or flight experience, and that does increase your heart rate. It increases your adrenaline production. You basically have an experience, and you survive it. So it can be a very, very powerful and very positive experience. The more horrific, the more that experience is viscerally felt by the audience.
I remember watching a Disney movie in the 50s. It was Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Sure.
You remember that,
yes,
guys?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So you're old guys
Sean
like...
Connery.
Yes, Sean Connery was one of his first American films.
Yeah.
And I woke up having dreams for weeks after that. I saw The Angel of Death. I saw the little people running up and down the walls in my bedroom. I must have been, let's see, I can even tell you, I must have been less than 8 years old.
Right.
Maybe my parents shouldn't have showed me the movie, is what I'm thinking about. But
and yet, look where you are today.
Yes.
Some doctors feel that watching horror movies and terror and thriller movies actually give people a better grasp of reality. They help to prepare or prime you to a state of readiness, which you can use in real-life situations. And then there's a soothing aspect, because, as Brian mentioned, in the movie, generally there's a conquering, there's a catharsis. And that allows you, on a subconscious level, if not consciously, to realize that you can face adversity and work your way through it and win. So all of that helps.
Does it help with a young person as well as an old person?
Well, I think that studies have shown that depending on the age and depending on the level of violence and so forth, that there is an opportunity for talking points to discuss issues for children that you can't normally, reach out and talk about in your everyday life. And that is healthy. However, I think it's up to the parent and parenting to be responsible and not show children, images that are going to be overly disturbing until they're ready to assimilate it, regurgitate it, and figure out what it really means.
And we are very, and as both Brian and I are parents, and many of the people that at the Horror Equity Fund as well, we have a certain responsibility, which we take very seriously, to not not putting forward stuff that is of highly questionable taste. We don't do what is commonly called gorn, which is a combination of gore and porn. We don't do torture for the sake of torture. In fact, when we decide whether or not to bring a project into the fund, we have an extensive analysis that goes on, and it considers things like justice and shock and justification for violence. Not that we're namby-pamby, but at the same time, we do owe a responsibility for quality, and we take it very seriously.
Don't you feel that today the audiences have become sort of desensitized because of CSI, because of Breaking Bad, because of Fargo and shows like that on television?
I think that they're perhaps more selective, and that helps us keep our collective eye on the ball of quality. With us, it all starts with the premise of the script or the project and the quality of it. A psychological thriller, whether it be on a small screen or a big screen, or your phone, or you're reading it, or you're watching
your radio,
in some other fashion, or your radio, absolutely, can be incredibly useful. And one project doesn't mean that you have to beat it in order to get a better project. You just have to find a unique spin, an interesting way of telling the tale. I think everyone knows about the Orson Welles radio program of War of the Worlds.
Absolutely.
Which was tantamount to a horror show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, also, Mark, that there is no question that, we as a society and entertainment, we push the envelope in terms of special effects, in terms of reality, in terms of, what we can show on screen and how far we go. But I am a big proponent, as Marlon mentioned, of story first. And, you know, one of the things that's happening right now is the Star Wars phenomenon that's happening. And it's not about the special effects.
No, it's
There's
a story.
nothing that you can put on screen that is going to wow the youth today and make them do backflips because of a bigger explosion or a more intricate ship or a creature that they haven't seen before. So it really comes down to, are you telling a story that touches someone in a way that is relatable? And that's universal. And that's universal whether it's horror or sci-fi or anything else. And when
Of
you
course.
talk about horror, you're talking about, you know, that person sitting in the dark, whether it's in the theater or at home, and reaching them in a way that gives them that adrenaline rush. And
We are
makes
talking,
them have
guys,
that
we're going to take a
butterflies in
time
the
out right now. We'll be back in a moment. We're talking with the guys from the Horror Equity Fund, Marlon Schulman, the founder and CEO, and ben-herskowitz, the creative director. And they don't produce, they just help producers. But we're talking about the health aspects of horror films. I just want to remind people that if you're in pain this holiday season as we go into the new year, go to radiantgreens.com, radiantgreens.com, and ask for Joint Support Plus. It's from our good friend, Dr. Tony O'Donnell. All right, I'm Mark Alyn. Marlon and Brian and Daryl and I return as Late Night Health moves on.